Are you looking to level up your author business?
Are you pounding your head against a wall, wondering what your next step should be? Then join me, Daniel Wilcox.
And me, Sacha Black, as we haul ass each week in a bid to level up.
Level up!
Come along for the ride as we delve deep into the business of writing,
Craft,
entrepreneurship,
and every level of the author journey. This is the Next Level Author Podcast. Hello, Achievers, and welcome to episode 104 of the Next Level Authors Podcast, a podcast where we hold each other to account and track our step-by-step progress as we level up our author business. My name is Daniel Wilcox, and here with me every single week is...
the perpetually exhausted Sacha Black.
Tell us more. How was your week, Sacha?
Exhausting. Atlas got COVID again. I don't remember if that had happened. Had that happened?
I don't think I think that wasn't that Friday.
Okay.
Or was that later on Thursday?
I don't have any concept of anything today, so I don't know. But Atlas got COVID. So he had Friday off, he had Monday off. He went back to school on Tuesday because he was testing negative again by Sunday.
Machine.
So, but he had to have 5 days off. So he went to school on Tuesday, and then what day is it today? Thursday. So then yesterday at 11 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call to say that I had to go and pick him up because he was basically like crying and tantruming and all the rest of it. And then he proceeded to scream, grunt, and punch pillows for like 3 hours yesterday. And I am catatonically tired today because he also got up at 5:30 this morning. So, yeah.
Well, it's the mental exhaustion, isn't it? Of like, and emotional exhaustion. Like, there's a few different factors there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that has been the majority of my week. Once again, so since we last spoke, I have had one working day. And that working day was spent on stuff for other people, freelance stuff.
Moral of the story.
Don't have kids,
folks.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't have kids.
Especially kids that are apparently a magnet for COVID-19.
Yeah. Seriously, I still haven't got it, by the way. Can we just, I am like the sole fucking dystopian survivor. I am a young adult dystopian heroine, people, because I still haven't had it. Touch all of the fucking wood.
Yeah, and I'm assuming Chloe was all right as well this time.
Yeah,
around.
Chloe didn't get it this time, but then she has had it, and obviously she's double vaxxed, so
Shield.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people don't. It is, I think, more unusual for people to have, but then obviously, like, Atlas isn't vaxxed because they don't vax kids here. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
I've no idea. It seems to be going through another spike, although I don't think that they're not really tracking it anymore. So I have no idea what the figures are, but which I think is probably in the best interest of the public at this point, in my opinion. But my a few people that I know have tested positive over the last week or so, and it's just that thing of like, there's that lull in which so much other stuff is going on that you almost forget that this is still out there, and then obviously it comes back in a big way sometimes. But that sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, I did do some reorganization and stuff, like in the 2 hours that I had yesterday to myself, which was good. But yeah,
is that like physical reorganizing space and tidying and stuff?
I tell you what I did. I wiped off the slate of the rest of my year.
Ooh.
And I am only planned 1 quarter in advance. And next quarter, I am doing nothing other than words and the podcast. That is it. I'm not doing a goddamn thing. If it's not words, it's not happening. I'm just going to say no. So I have to finish 2 books in 12 weeks. But hey, competition, right? Like that's the kind of shit I need. So
you got this.
Yeah, I like, so yeah, I have to finish a course before basically London Book Fair. I've got London Book Fair, I've got a quick trip to Amsterdam, a presentation to deliver, and then that's it, words. So that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, just that fresh kind of clearing out, airing out, getting rid of all the dust.
Like, what's next? That reminds me, I really need to sit down in the next week and look at what my next quarter is, because I do arguably think, and I'm not trying to put too much pressure on myself, but I do arguably think that the next quarter might be the most critical of my career. Just in the sense of
no pressure then, bud.
No pressure. But it could be like the biggest no. Like, you know, I know who I am and how I pace and how I work. So it's that thing of like, I know what it is I want to achieve. I just have to figure out the best way that I can get there. And it's been so for me, it's been a good week. It's been filled with quite a few potential surprise opportunities. And I think it's that thing of like, so I think I mentioned last week, I've officially informed my clients that I'm not going to be ghostwriting with them anymore. And in doing that, the amount of just weight that is lifted off my shoulders. I've still got the work to do to make sure that I can afford not to, but at the same time, because I've been stuck in that quagmire of like, I don't know when it's going to end for so long, I just feel this sort of like release of creative energy. So it's not to the point that like I'm doing what I've done in the past, which is just taking on everything left, right, and center to just because I get excited and that's what I do. But I am trying to be very, very specific, and I know what my plan is to go ahead, and I know the different things I'm going to try. But just a couple of conversations this week with a good friend of mine, and we've got the potential of looking at a couple of courses in the next few months that might pop up that has the potential to be quite lucrative and like sector leading, depending on what we do with it.
You're going to create courses?
Potentially. It's on the cards. It's something that sort of I'm working with someone to look at, and I can't really say much more than that at this point. And then I had sort of a surprise talk with, again, I'm being very cagey around this, like I'm going back to that episode 100 clip of like, we're going to be totally transparent, and it's just like all the stuff that we can't say, but there is the most I can say. There's a potential opportunity with a quite revered screenwriter to do some sort of collaborations in terms of like activated authors and other stuff. And so it's that thing of like, because weirdly as well, it's timed out that I've been on interviewed on a few podcasts this week, and people have asked me about collaborations and stuff, because obviously like the book that I wrote, and it's that thing of, I keep coming back to, of like, I need to obviously make sure it works for both sides. It's that thing of like, the opportunities are really exciting and it could be a thing that you jump into and it could be amazing, but I'm making sure that I do the groundwork first to ensure that, number one, it's worth my energy, number two, it moves in the direction that I do want to move in, and number three, it's also beneficial for the other person. So it's, you know, it's a lot of thinking going on while I'm also trying to continue working through the ghostwriting I currently have, and also look at the next steps forward. It's quite a lot, but at the same time, like I say, that unleashing of energy from knowing where the end point is in the ghostwriting is kind of, it's been such a mental, it's just brought a lot of mental clarity, which is quite nice. So yeah, that's been the majority of my week, I think. What's something you've enjoyed this week?
3 things.
Ooh.
One, I have started world building for the next book after Scent that I'm gonna write, and I drew a map, and I've been inputting some interesting historical events that are inspiring the story, and it I always forget, why do we have to relearn the same shit? It's so annoying. But I forgot how much having a world and knowing, like, drawing a map forces you to think about how the world works, and therefore, like, it just, like, in drawing the map, I came up with some really, really cool plot ideas. Nice. So yeah, I did that. I have gone back to my old trusty Clever Fox planner, quarterly planner, the quarterly planner, which would indicate that shit is about to get done, because whenever I had a Clever Fox planner, shit always got done. So and the only reason I stopped, I think it was pandemic related, and I feel like that is, well, I think I'm forcing it to be done. I'm done with it, so it's done now. And the last thing was a conversation that I had with Claire, and she basically gave me a bit of a kick up the arse, and she said to me that, how do I phrase this? So, like, basically, in my ideal world, I will Phoenix burn, right? And I will clear whole days, and I will get whole days to write words, because that's how I like to sink into it, because like the first hour is usually me like trying to get my brain into focus, and then the second hour is always like extreme productivity for me. And then like I wobble a bit, and then I have another good like 45 minutes, and then like I sort of lose until I break. I then lose, unless I have a break, I can pick it back up again. But anyway, and she was basically saying that I don't have an ideal world right now, so either I can wait until like this new chunk of time that I have cleared, or I can just try and get an hour here and there. And she was like, and I was like, no, I don't wanna. And I was like, I didn't quit my job for this. And she was like, no, but it did work before. And I was like, and she just like the way she said things, like, I was just like, for fuck's sake, like, yeah, I used to have a full-time job, a toddler, and I managed to write and publish as many books as I do now. So I was like, you know what, like, I think I definitely used to write more exhausted than I am now. And so I wrote in the sprints last night after what had been a horrific day, and I still managed to get about 700 words. So I was like, you know, maybe I just need to write exhausted. Like maybe that is my MO. Like maybe I just need to spend more time writing when I'm absolutely bollocksed, instead of waiting for those days when I'm not tired. Like maybe that is a fallacy or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I liked being reminded that I can write in unideal circumstances, situations. And I sort of feel like she lit the competition a bit, just to be like, because like one part of my brain was like, well, you can't win your day unless you get to write all day. And now I'm like, well, I'm gonna fucking prove you wrong, aren't I, bitch? Yeah. To myself, obviously, not to Claire. That's like me. That's me arguing with my own brain right here. Yeah. And within that conversation, I have decided what my next nonfiction book is going to be, and I'm not telling anyone. Well, Claire knows by default, but yeah, like I'm very excited about the next nonfiction book. Obviously, I'm writing one now. I don't know if I've said what I'm writing on this one. Have I said what I'm writing?
I don't know.
Okay, so I'm writing a book called The Anatomy of Writing, X Steps to Read Like a Writer and Teach Yourself Craft. So like there is a bit of a gap in the market where there are a few very academic texts that talk about how to read like a writer. And it's the stuff that you don't do. Like you absorb naturally, but I don't. And so it's basically showing writers how to deconstruct what other authors are doing. So how to read a book, like let's say you've read a book and you not that you want to emulate necessarily, but like you really admire their voice. Mm-hmm. Well, I can show people how to find out how they've created that voice. So I'm like basically deconstructing, showing people how to deconstruct like what other the tools and literary devices and things that other writers are using, so that they can use those tools themselves.
Well, that is huge.
But that's this one, not the next one.
Yeah, because there's also a question that I get a lot from people is, you know, how do you, because it's overwhelming the amount of stuff you have to learn when you do start. And so it's like when you self-edit your work or when you start writing, what are the things that you should be paying attention to? And I think, you know, it's not that I don't need something like that, because I go through the same process as everyone else, or I did go through the same process as everyone else and still do with how I analyze and deconstruct text. I just do it in my head as opposed to needing that sort of physical writing down analysis. Like there's definitely still an element of me where as I'm reading, I'm going like, oh, how was this effect achieved? And then I do internalize that based off of what I was saying. So I think it's still.
And the interesting thing is I probably do that now because I know how to deconstruct now. Whoops. Yeah. Whereas I didn't when I first started. So yeah, I do think a lot of us over time internalize things.
It's just natural. It's just part of the territory, isn't it? And that's kind of why I say to people, like, it's experience at the end of the day. Like it looks easier once because you start, like I remember very, very early on starting on with things like how long is a sentence? How long is a paragraph? Like where the hell does a paragraph break? Like what is the right way to do that? And then like, you know, even just looking at particular use of commas, which is just, it's a hard game to play because if you're reading an English book, the commas will be different to if you read a US English book. But yeah, all these different steps. And then it's just taking one at a time and just each time you write something new, trying to incorporate something different. Yeah. But that does sound really, really valuable. Like you say, a lot of this kind of stuff is hidden in academia, and it would be nice to see that more relatable to the layman.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this book. I'm excited about the next book, because there is a real hole.
Sacha's gonna fill.
Yeah.
I love it. What's something I've enjoyed this week? I will say that I have rewatched the Michael Jordan documentary yet again, The Last Dance.
It's so good.
It's powerful for so many reasons. Like it shows you the value of team. It shows you sort of the incredible feat of mental strength and just determination that someone like Michael Jordan has.
That right there is a number one competition.
Yes, 100%. Like nothing mattered but winning.
Yep.
And just being the best at all costs. And like it's one of those that do you know what's interesting? And I know that you're gonna, well, I feel like you'll probably laugh at this. It's like, so I watched it again. And number one, I'm a huge basketball fan anyway. And like I grew up not quite being able to witness the Jordan era, but being sort of around the Jordan era and other people, because I was like the kid didn't have access to all the different TV stations where you could watch him. So it was like the whispers of Jordan, and then obviously like Space Jam comes out and like the Chicago Bulls, and like the whole thing was kind of like my intro into basketball. And just watching the plays and just watching some of the stuff that he achieved and just how good he was is just gorgeous. But the thing that I take away from that most is the coach, Phil Jackson, and the methods that he used to coach, like what was at that time, it was a very sort of just hustle culture grind of coaches. Like you shouted at the team to do better. It was very sort of militant and military, like go out there, just like defeat them. And Phil Jackson was the guy that taught the Chicago Bulls Zen Buddhism and would like allow each individual person to do what they need to do to then bring them together as a team. And just like that kind of view. And I've recently downloaded Phil Jackson's.
There's the number one individualization.
Exactly. Yeah. I've downloaded. It's called 11 Rings, and it's Phil Jackson's kind of autobiography memoir thing, because he helped the Lakers then go on to win championships as well, because he was just a fucking good coach. And I'm looking forward to getting my teeth sunk into that. But just I've just been watching that, and it's one of those things that kind of lights a fire up your ass and goes, right, what can you really do if you try?
There's a documentary about coaches on Netflix, and it like they look at Jose Mourinho and like a bunch of the other coaches. I've watched it, and I will, if you remind me after this, I'll see if I can find the name of it. But it was fascinating, and like coaches for like tennis stars, and like it was really interesting. Like it tickled the old competition. Like even you talking about Michael Jordan, I was like, yeah.
You just see it in his face. Like everything that he did along the way was like, we are not going down. Like I am not being anything less than what I can be. And I
get pennies just thinking about like shit like that. Like, I love it.
The thing that really gets me, especially when you watch that, is obviously MJ he wasn't just a basketball player. He was like a global phenomenon, like before social media, before anything else. Like most countries, most people at least knew his name. And that kind of lifestyle, you watch everyone else on the team just kind of like walking around, and then he can't walk from a coach to the stadium without having like 30 media just pressing in on him and living that kind of lifestyle. It just sounds awful, but it didn't deter him from doing what he achieved. And there's a part, especially later on in the documentary, where it talks about how he was always so present in the moment. And there's a part again where he's just walking from the sort of the coach into the stadium, and he's got his headphones on, and he's just trying to like enjoy himself, and all the media are asking him questions, and he's actually just turning around to the journalist going, yeah, no, maybe, whatever, just can I walk, please? Just, but he's so like in the moment. And I think that's something that so many people strive to do, just be present and enjoy what you're currently doing. And he had that on top of everything else. It's insane. So that was my thing that I enjoyed this week. Quarterly confessional. Dan will dictate 2 novels, launch a survey, write 3 short stories, and launch a new podcast. I am on the cusp of finishing novel number 2. I don't know what's happening with the survey yet. I've got 7 days. I've written 2 short stories out of the 3, and I have launched the podcast. So,
well done, buddy, because you were way away from that last week.
We'll see. Sacha will read a minimum of 5 Sapphic books, implement outsourcing, and check off 5 things on the new business plan.
Yeah, so I've read 30 books this quarter, I think, something like that, of which a lot of them, or 30, I think. I think I've almost finished my 31st. Let me check. Yeah.
I feel like you may have lowballed here.
They're not all Sapphic though. Like
Okay.
the point was how many Sapphic books I wanted to read. And I have read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think. 7 Sapphic books out of the 30. So I've done that. I have implemented outsourcing. And what was the other one?
5 things on a new business plan.
Yeah. I'm way past that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Any new patrons?
No new patrons, but if you would like to join us on Patreon, then you can by visiting Next Level Authors. No, patreon.com/Next Level Authors. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Perfect. Notices.
Oh, no.
Okay. So I have one, which is I am very, very excited that I will be opening up registration for my next cohort of mastermind people. So all the information will be at activatedauthors.com/mastermind. At the minute, you can register your interest, and then I'm just getting all the behind the scenes bits done. And I'll have more information on that. But if you want to be the first to find out what's going on, and if you want kind of a helping hand in achieving whatever your big goals are for your author career, then head on over to activatedauthors.com/mastermind. And comments. No, level ups.
Okie dokie. So the level up this week. Rob Hewitt reached out to the team at Write Better Faster, and now I'm just waiting for their code so I can get the strengths test done. Focused on inputting to, I've read 15 books this quarter, 2/3 of the way through my the prequel novella first draft, so that should squeaky bum time be done by the end of March, as well as the Q1 challenge. And Rob got the Clifton strengths results, so he is number 1 intellection, number 2 futuristic, number 3 learner, number 4 strategic, and number 5 discipline. So that's why I picked that one.
Any more?
Level ups.
Oh, sorry. I've blanked and time traveled to comments.
Oh, yes, I've got lots of comments for you.
Comments.
Okay, so let me start with Patreon first, because there's just one over there. So Arabelle said, I'm a plotter, so always know what I'm writing before I draft. I can't write without one, but sometimes I'll get stuck on a scene. So I'll either take a break and watch/read something, or I'll hop over to a different whip for a bit. For general motivation, I find AuthorTube is a very helpful kick up the butt. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Meg said you're allowed to roll your eyes at reason 2. I should know better by now. Reason 1, I don't know what's happening next. I'm a planner, so if I haven't planned what happened next, I falter. I go back a bit, plan, and off I charge again. Works without fail for me. Number 2, I am in 100% denial about how much real life should affect writing, and will not accept the fact that, in fact, I am not a robot, but a human, a complex organism where homeostasis is thrown off kilter by any myriad of things I frankly wish would disappear. In this case, whatever combination of rest, inputting, and reprioritizing my to-do list, deleting lots of superfluous crap, etc., these things help get energy pennies to go again. And there's sort of like another bit more explanation about life bullshit that gets in the way. And then Renee says, if I'm ever smart enough to stop and input when I'm having problems writing, my life would be so much easier. But no, I berate myself, feel guilty, get snappy with people. And when I finally get just so frustrated that I stop and read or watch something, there it goes. And I tell myself that I need to do that every time. But the next time it rolls around, and guess what? And then finally, Edwin Downward said, the single best method I found of clearing my head to approach a block from a new angle is to seek a change of scenery, preferably one that'll give me a chance to walk through whatever is holding me back.
So much I want to say on those comments. I feel you, Meg. We've had conversations about this, and it's that thing of like, just you want to do so much, and I've been preaching this a lot on different podcasts and things this week, just that whole ethos of it's not just the writing, it is the other stuff in your life as well. And it's so annoying because writing is the central thing that I come back to that I can control. And so I feel like in those moments where I can control it, I should be able to control it. And you don't always realize how much all those external factors do affect you. And then Renee, go easier on yourself, please. Like, because I think we spoke about this before, especially with things like burnout, is like it sneaks up on you. That's the point. Like, it slowly, incrementally happens to the point that you suddenly are in the pit of it, and then you're like, oh shit, how did I get here? Like, it happens with everyone, and just recognize at that moment where you are, and then turn around and pull yourself out. It's hard, man. Okay, so question of the week. Are you ready?
No.
Cool. So I stole this one from Shane, who is one of our patrons. And it's something, so we've kind of been around this subject. Back in episode 49, we asked the question, why nonfiction? Shane wants to ask, what are the biggest lessons you've learned from writing nonfiction? Don't do it.
Well, writing nonfiction is very similar and dissimilar to writing fiction. I think this is difficult because I kind of came to writing nonfiction completely accidentally. I think I've learned that I will always be a learner, and therefore I am always going to have something to say nonfiction wise. I have learned how to teach effectively. And I think there are a lot of authors who are incredibly good at writing fiction and have absolutely no idea how or why they are so good at it. I have learnt, I don't know, what have I learnt from writing nonfiction?
You like to swear and make dick jokes.
Yeah, that's definitely, well, I think we might have known that. I think I have learned that I have a deep-seated passion, obsession with, oh God, I'm having realizations even as I say this. So I think
Say it.
I think the reason I write nonfiction is because I'm really competitive. So the reason I do it is because by deconstructing what other people are doing and enabling me to like discover all of these tools and tricks that I then share in nonfiction books, it helps me to be the best writer that I can be. So in summary, I have once again proved that I am a #1 competition. No, I really enjoy figuring out how things work and why things work in literature. And I have enjoyed the fact that that helps me write better fiction. So I definitely have learned that I think the reason behind it is because it helps me be better. I have learned about community building. I have learned that I have an affinity for building a community. I just seem to do it without meaning to. I have learned that I have learned business. I think more than the fiction, the nonfiction has taught me about business.
Yeah.
Because there are so many more opportunities. Not more. There are so many, maybe more. There are so many ways to make money with nonfiction. And some of that is about learning what you enjoy doing and learning. I've just had another realization.
Nice question, Shane.
Fuck's sake. I don't want to talk about that realization though.
I'm making a note for that off air.
Yeah, like this is a really hard question to answer. Like, what have I learned about, what was the question? What was the exact wording of the question?
What are the biggest lessons you've learned from writing nonfiction?
I really like business. That is one thing that I have learned. I wrote nonfiction by accident. But in writing nonfiction, I have realized that there is a whole business that I have created, can create, and can continue to iterate. And I really enjoy the business side of the nonfiction more than I enjoy the business side of the fiction, which I find it interesting. And I don't know why.
I have opinions, but I'll get to that in my bit.
Yeah. So I really like business. And I think that I have learned that I really like writing nonfiction, and I will write nonfiction that isn't even about writing at some point. Like, I have a few books that are in my mind that I need to brew for a few more years, but I will definitely veer out of writing about writing, but continue to write nonfiction. I think that I have learned that there are pieces of me that can't be expressed in fiction that have to be expressed in nonfiction, which I enjoy. I have learned more about how to create a sustainable business from nonfiction than I have from fiction, because there are more moving parts. So like, I feel more like an entrepreneur because of the nonfiction than I do because of the fiction. Yeah. So like, yeah, I don't know, like maybe other people don't feel like that, but for me, the nonfiction has taught me like business. It's taught me, like, I feel like I could go into an arena, like let's say like women's like business network in the east of England or whatever. I could go to that because of my nonfiction. I don't feel like I could go to that because of my fiction. Yeah. So it enables me to have a different headspace. I feel, yeah, I don't know, what else have I learned? It's really hard. I might have to come back once you've answered, because maybe I need some intellecting time.
Yeah. So I jotted down, because obviously I was just as prepared as you were for the question. I jotted down a couple of things. So one thing that I've seen a lot of people do is put out one nonfiction and then just leave it and then move on to other things. And what I've learned from my own experience is you can't really half-ass nonfiction. I'm not saying that people who put out one book are half-assing it, but I mean more in the sense of like, in order to keep that book moving, in order to keep the messaging and the ideas behind it alive, you have to constantly be working on it, even if it's not directly writing on that book. So, you know, with you and the Rebel Author group, with me and the Activated Authors group, and like the kind of stuff that we speak about, it all ends up coming back to our books. So if you've got an idea for a nonfiction book, it's not something that I feel you can take lightly. And if anything, like, I still curse the day that you push me towards nonfiction, because I'm now managing two businesses as opposed to one. And there definitely is a added weight that comes with that. And it's not something that I change, but it's definitely added to the workload of what I do, because fiction readers aren't always, well, 90% of the time, they're not going to be your non-fiction readers. So you are managing two different businesses, people who want to learn something from you versus people who want just to be entertained. And on that, I think there's almost like a baked in evergreen marketing channel for your nonfiction, because you're solving a particular need, you're answering a particular question. So if somebody says, and you know, let's get weird and niche, and I don't know if this exists, but like, I'm a writer and I want to also get fit while I write. Like, if you look for that question, you will find someone who's written that specific thing. There's that kind of like drawn in already. There's that channel of advertising that's kind of built in. Whereas in fiction, if somebody writes, I want to read about dragons, there will be thousands and thousands of people to compete with, and it all depends on where people sit in the charts and all that kind of stuff. So I think there is an element of it being easy is not the right word, but I think a little bit simpler in that regard. Something that people have asked me on a few occasions who have ideas on writing nonfiction and how to go about it. There's a lot of imposter syndrome around nonfiction, and the way that I kind of view anything that I write at this point is like, yes, maybe people have spoken on this subject before, but nobody has written it in the way that I will, because I have my voice and my experience and my way of saying what it is. So when I wrote Collaboration for Authors, you know, Craig Martell, Jay Thorne, Joanna Penn, they've all done things on collaboration. But my experience has been vastly different to theirs, because I am who I am, and the way that I've written it, I've checked through the books to make sure that, you know, they weren't too similar, and I had my own ideas, but you know, it's the way that I write it, and it's my journey. So that will speak to someone in a way that the other books won't. And similar with Self-Publishing Blueprint, there's, you know, a bunch of people out there who've written books on how to self-publish. I've written it in my way, with my voice, with the steps that I take, and it's different. And even if my audience is smaller than some of the other books, my hope is that it will resonate with the people who are more like me. And just find, because I've read books on similar subjects that they vary in how easily I can digest them. Like, it really does depend on voice. It really does depend on how things are structured, how things are communicated, and analogies, things that, you know, relate to where you are in your journey. And so if you are thinking of writing a nonfiction, just really, really consider, you know, who it is you're trying to reach. And with that, I'll come back to a quote that I'm sure that I've said on this podcast a few times, that I heard on, there's a guy called Rory Vader, who's like a marketing guy, but he said, you are always most powerfully positioned to help the person you once were.
Yeah.
So whenever I write a nonfiction, it's for 2015, Dan, when I started, when I knew nothing. And that is the person I'm trying to hit, because there are more me's out there.
Yeah. So I want to talk more about the thing. Well, kind of, I think this is what you were saying, but like, and I completely agree with this, was sort of the second point around voice. But like, I definitely think with nonfiction, you have, even if your voice is more neutral, let's say, than mine, that's okay if you have an angle, right? Yes. So like the whole point of nonfiction is that there has to be a reason that you're saying what you're saying. And so there has to be a new spin on productivity, or there has to be a new spin on craft. Like you can be saying the same stuff if you have a different way of explaining, or like a different point that you're making. Like, what is the point of your book? Like, what is the angle, the hook? Just like you need a hook in fiction, you need to be saying something, not just regurgitating standard facts in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. And so that's the other side of that is, if you are just kind of pulling together information that's kind of already out there and you don't have a new way of looking at it, then you better make damn sure that your voice is really voicey.
Yeah.
That's sort of the two options with that. And the second thing that I wanted to say is that there are a lot of low content nonfiction books out there, and it drives me fucking insane. There are so many low quality nonfiction books, and it's really disappointing. And one way to succeed in nonfiction is just not to do that, right? Mm-hmm. What do I mean by low content? I mean books that are fluffy. So like they're very high level, don't go into much detail, or when they go into detail, they don't provide examples, right? You have to provide examples. You have to provide tangible, here are some steps that you can take. Like these are the things that people go to nonfiction for. And the number of books that don't deliver that is unreal. Really, really shocking, the number of
5-minute reads, just flick through them. I've done it.
Yeah, like it's so know what you're doing, and then like fiction, try to stay in your genre, try to stay in your niche until you have a set number of books, right? Because the reason that I have a nonfiction business is because I have stuck with craft, and I did it, and I very nearly veered into business. I was this close to veering into business. I even have drafts of like chunks of books, and I didn't do it. And I'm so glad I didn't do it, because I am now known for craft, and I'm really passionate about craft, and I have not finished. I still have things to say, but I have lots of things to, I think I've got 3 or 4 more books off the top of my head that I still want to write before, and that's just now, like, and like I'll write those books and more will come to me. But like, it is, the easier it is. Yeah. And so I would say either choose craft or choose business. Like don't flip-flop between the two, because they are different audiences. And think about the evergreen nature of your books as well. So like with nonfiction, if you are more on the business side, those books are needed because we are all here trying to build businesses, but understand that the chances are you will have to update your books more often than somebody like me who is writing about craft. Although I do feel like I need to update the villains book, but that's a whole other story. So just consider whether or not you're doing craft or business, and then consider, I don't know, like maybe if you are going into nonfiction intentionally, think about where you want that nonfiction business to be in 5 years' time, because it will take up a lot of time, and that is time you won't be spending writing fiction.
And I think it was in one of our expert panels a couple of weeks ago with the Activated Authors group, that someone asked about sort of nonfiction and whatnot. And one thing that I said in there is find what it is that's easy for you, because almost guaranteed that thing that's easy for you is hard for someone else.
So I always ask 3 questions. What to people who tell me they want to write nonfiction? What are you really good at? What really annoys you? Or what do you want to learn?
Yeah.
And you can usually find the answer to the book that you want to write in one of those 3 questions. For me, it's usually question 3, what do I want to learn? And that is usually how I tell which book to write next. Yeah.
Or, like you say,
or what do I want to consolidate? Like, but that comes in the learning question.
Yeah. And like you say, there are different sort of niches within the grander scope of things. Because I mean, collaboration for authors doesn't sell great quantities, but every now and then it trickles in because some people collaboration is quite a niche thing within writing. Self-publishing blueprint is much more universal in terms of people who want to publish, who are indies or self-published or wants to go down that route. What I found really interesting is that obviously because of my journey over the years, I've gained some kind of reputation for productivity. So the amount of just verbal support for a book that I haven't yet written at this point is huge. And which is bizarre because that puts a weird amount of pressure on it. But at the same time, as people on this podcast know, that book has gone through so many iterations in my head, and I'm finally at the point where I have the angle that I want to do, because I didn't just want to regurgitate everything that everyone else has done, and I know what my spin is. I just got to write it down. Yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm at the point where I need to. Well, I would like to launch the survey so I can actually get feedback from the community. I just, because of dropping off the ghostwriting and other things, I have to just switch priorities for a couple of weeks, and then I can get back to it. But it is. It feels different and it feels weird, but it's I'm still aiming it at creatives and writers. It's a productivity book that is universal, but at the same time, I'm still aiming it at the writing community specifically. So, because that's my journey, that's my voice. And the one extra thing that I'll add to this as well that I've got in here that I think you kind of touched upon is, what is the big idea? What is the gel that fixes everything together? Like you say, with nonfiction, there's much more of a business framework. So you can have a book from that if you want. You can teach, you can coach, you can run sessions, you can, all these different things. And one massive lesson I learned from the Great Writer Share podcast was that I launched that podcast for the intention of me just basically serving my own need of wanting to talk to other authors. And then when I tried to build a community around it, there wasn't I managed a small community, but there wasn't the excitement that there is with activated authors, because there wasn't that cohesion in what I was doing. And because all of my focus was on fiction at the time, it felt very disconnected with what I was doing. Whereas since then, in rebranding, in embracing sort of the coaching side of stuff and launching the Activated Authors podcast, there's been a real switch in my nonfiction business in which I can see where all the individual components link together in a way that they just didn't when I was doing Great Writer Share, because that central idea that we've spoken about on an episode way back about brand and stuff, that just wasn't in place because I wasn't looking for it. But now building just an infrastructural kind of cohesion of everything is just one thing magnifies the other, it springs off, it links back to the other, and that's where the real power comes in, because that can scale. So yeah, what are the biggest lessons you've learned from writing nonfiction? Hopefully that was helpful, Shane. And we'll wrap up for this week. Next week we will be calling each other out on our quarterly challenge and looking at setting our goals for the next one. Join us for that. One extra thing, just because it's flashed up in my vision from a previous note, fuck you for telling people that I'm a Pisces, because that's all I'm getting at the minute. A year and a half later, just I thought you were an Aries. Will you piss off? Thank you for that.
Darling, you will always be my Pisces.
I can't even remember what episode that was on, but it was I was around your house. It wasn't long after you'd moved.
Yeah, we didn't have this in yet.
No. So thank you.
You are most welcome.
But yes, from myself and from Sacha, we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hungry for more?
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of my angelic accent and Dan's dulcet tones on our other podcasts.
For more of me, check out the Activated Authors podcast.
For more of me, listen to the Rebel Author podcast. We'll be back next week holding each other to account as Dan
and Sacha
become
next level
authors.
Mate, do you know what I did? I stared at the screen like this.
Yeah. Bloody Zombo. Look at you little Zombo, just staring at the screen. Oh my God. It's been such a tough week for Sacha. Oh, I wish I could go over there and give you a hug. The biggest hug possible, because I'm 6'1" and you're 4'2". You'll drown in my hug. It'd be amazing. It'd be fucking amazing. Look at you.
I think I need to make another coffee before I can't handle.
I just need to give you some affection. Oh my God. My favorite. It's my favorite Australian phrase.
Coffee to go with it. Make another one.